Hi and welcome to another video in which I am going to share more of my findings in the study of Scripture, trying to find the truth from the lies, what the lying pens of the scribe have done. In this case, we're looking at Matthew 8:28 and what is called the story of the possessed man and the 2,000 swine. In my studies, I found that this is a parable with a deeper truth and even prophecy. So reading in Matthew 8:28, when they arrived at the other side in the region of the Gardanes, if I'm saying that right, two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. I want to stop there and point out that in the verses just above this, it's interesting the corresponding things. We have the story of the calming of the storm, and no one could pass and were afraid of the waves and the winds. Similar type of activity happening here as what is in this other story, that no one could pass these possessed men because they were so violent. In the above thing, it is talking about the violence of the storm, and they thought they were going to die and drown. They're pleading for him to save them. In fact, in Matthew 8:22, even before that story, is his interaction with another individual, and they are telling him to follow the way of life and let the dead bury their own dead. So this is some of the things before we get into this story that have already been said, and they correspond. Another point is that these two possessed men are living amongst the tombs or in the cemetery. This is a key point to see here, and that these are people who are the dead amongst the dead, meaning that they were following the covenant of death, the way that leads to death. So their end result was going to be them being dead. So they're considered as dead already, and they're amongst those who have actually died following the way of. I'll also point out at this time that in this version in Matthew, as in a number of other stories in Matthew, there are two instead of one. Whereas in Mark and Luke, there's only one possessed man. And this, I believe, is due to the fact that they're hiding the fact that there were the two witnesses, and to obscure this over a period of time of writing and rewriting these scripture passages, they've done away with the two witnesses and turned it into two of this or two of that to get people confused as to were there two witnesses or was there only the one. With that being said, what is going on in this verse 28, this is a parable. This person represents someone who is possessed with the knowledge, the false knowledge of Judaism. They have false teachings and false doctrines that are not of God, but have been portrayed as being that way by the lying pen of the scribes and the priests who continue verbally speaking these lies. So literally, anyone following Judaism is someone who is considered dead, living amongst the dead, because all their forefathers have died. Those who have followed Judaism die. They are in a covenant of death. And so this man in the parable says, "What do you want with us, sons of God, sons of the Creator?" They shouted, "Have you come to torture us before the appointed time. Now, this is a bad translation. They're actually saying, have you come to point out what the true appointed time is? That they would have the pain of having to hear the truth as opposed to that which they thought was the truth and that which they have believed, that which possessed them. It then goes into, in verse 30 and 31, showing that that which possessed this man went into the quote-unquote 2,000 swine. Remember, this is a parable. And then they all went into the sea of death and died. This is picturing something that will come about, that has come about, and we are experiencing to this day. It has to do with Christianity. And throughout Scripture, the swine is a representation of Christianity. So with this being understood that it is Christianity, is it not shedding light on the fact that Christianity bears the ritual of baptism, which is what these swine were brought into, a baptism of death? Christians go into a baptism of death. They die. They are in a covenant of death. So this teachings and the lies that are in Judaism were brought into Christianity, and Christians have believed these things, but it all leads to death. Christians baptize, and they think they are somehow uniting with their Christ into death, and that they somehow are resurrected afterwards. These are all fallacies. So what is the key thing here in this parable, besides showing the prophecy of what would come about with Christianity? And that is the key line in verse 29, talking about the appointed time. Almost to everyone that talks about this verse, they're talking about the 6,000 years, that they've come before the 6,000 years are up. Like that, again, this is a fallacy and a teaching of Judaism that is wrong. What is being talked about here is, have you come to correct us on what the appointed time of the Creator is? What is the Creator's appointed time? What is His memorial? The two witnesses came to bear witness to the Father's, mistranslated as name, to bear witness to the Father's name. It's to bear witness to His memorial, His Sabbath, which had been hidden, the seventh day on which we are to rest and have communication and direct dialogue with the Creator, that knowledge can be input to us because we draw close to Him and He teaches us on that day. It's the only day the professor is in session in totality. This parable may also be showing us which day of the false week is actually the true Sabbath. Because if we look in the other two Gospels where it talks about legion being many that are inside of this possessed man, a legion is 6,000 troops in a Roman army. If we drop the zeros, it's 6, and this is referring to the man created on the sixth day who rebelled and established the false Sabbath of Saturday. If we then take the 2,000 swine, and why drop the zeros again, it's 2. 2 from 6 is 4, pointing to the fourth day. Fourth day in the false week is Wednesday, the true Sabbath. But also, if we go the opposite way and we add 2 to 6, it's 8. The 8th day is another first day of the week. And what is the first day of the week in the false week? That is Sunday. And which day do the swine worship those who are baptized? They keep Sunday. So that could be a type of identifying coding put in there that we're on to the right answer. But there is also a third thing that is shown, and that is the 2,000 swine plus the two, whether it's the two witnesses or the two demonics, adds up to 4. Again, pointing to the 4th day. So you may think I'm stretching that a bit, but based on everything else that's been shown, I think this quite possibly is showing that it is Wednesday that is the true Sabbath. But it definitely is showing that Saturday, the day that Judaism keeps, is false. And it is part of the way that leads to death. Thank you for listening to this. And I am also in the process of doing another study into Jude, the book of Jude, and what that has to do with Moses and the truth about what happened to Moses. Blessings to you all. Take care.